Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and formally introduce myself. My name is Amy AVILA. I'm one of the crime prevention specialists here at the Chino Police Department. But thank you guys so much for being willing to have this forum. I know it's been a long time coming and we're just so excited to have you here. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and I know some of you guys may know each other, but I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself and then share how old you are and what school you go to. And we'll go ahead and start with this young lady.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm 15, class of 2023. I'm a sophomore. I go to Don Lugo High School, and I'm super excited about this, and I just can't wait to ask everyone questions.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, my name is Cheyenne Hernandez. I'm 17. I'm a junior at Don Lugo High School, so I am class of 2022.
Hi, I'm Tristen Amers. I'm 17. I go to Chino High School. I'm class of 2022.
Hi, I'm Madisen Remus. I'm 15 years old. I'm class of 2023, and I go to Chino High School. Hi,
I'm Brian Wilson. I'm 17 years old. I'm a senior, and I'm class of 2021, and I go to BV.
Hi, my name is Darius. I go to BV, and I graduate class of 2021.
Hi, my name is Liz. I'm 17. I'm class of 2021, and I graduate this year. Oh, I go to Chino High.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And I know you guys all know each other, but also for our viewers, if you can go ahead and start with you, Officer Barber, how long you've been here?
I'm Officer Barber. I've been here since 2008, and I'm a former SRO, and I've worked at each different school site since 2016.
I'm Officer Mason. I am at Don Lugo High School. I've been at this department about 2 years now, and I've been at Don Lugo about 1 month, and excited.
I'm Officer ASBEE. I am assigned to Buena Vista. I've been with the Chino Police Department for about 6 years, and I'm also excited.
Hi, everybody. My name is Officer Torres, and I've been with the Chino Police Department for about 4 years, and I'm currently an SRO over at Chino High School.
Thank you guys so much. So for this evening, I know it can be a little nerve-wracking, just being here, but you guys all seem really chatty and not nervous whatsoever. But we really wanted this evening to be a space where you guys can just be open and ask a lot of questions, and especially as with this whole year and how everything's unfolded, this is so needed, and we're just really grateful to have you guys here. So without further ado, what I wanted to do is open up our first topic of discussion. We are all aware of the George Floyd incident and how that was initially what kick-started and this whole year. And so with that being said, we wanted to hear from you guys and how that made you feel, or just seeing how that, I know that's really heavy and it doesn't necessarily have to be about George Floyd, but maybe because that was what kick-started us, like how that has made you guys feel as students, or if you guys had questions, we just want to go ahead and dive into it with you guys.
Darius, as a black man, how do you feel? How did it make you feel watching the video?
Honestly, it was kind of disturbing. Just being like, okay, to see like a cop there just able to just kill somebody like that, it was kind of just very disturbing as a black man.
Okay. And what kind of emotions did you take from that?
I guess you could say like a little angry, maybe like sad a little bit.
What? And sad because what?
Sad because it was like to see like somebody die like that, to have to hear their last words be like, oh, because they're crying for their mom. So,
and I can totally agree, and I would share the same sentiments, because as a police officer, our job is to, first, it's the safety of the public, right? And sometimes we do have to make choices and use force and take people into custody, but and I'll just take it all the way back. So once we interview for these positions and we go through the background check and we, they deem us clear to do this job. We take on a lot of responsibility, especially as young people. I got hired when I was 22. So especially as young people, they're giving you this power, and they're instilling upon you the power to go out and enforce laws, and also to affect arrests, and just kind of deal with the community. And I think even watching that as a police officer myself, and seeing the time length and all the actions that happened, where his knee was on his neck for that amount of time and he wasn't moving, that was disheartening for me. And one is for the simple fact that we need to hold our partners accountable for our actions. And yeah, sometimes force, it does not look pretty, okay? But, you know, we try to do it swiftly and we try to do it within reason, you know? So, you know, it's, hey, if you see your partner and, hey, look, let's change this, let's do this, you know, we have that power to stop it. And I think it definitely could have been stopped and it could have been handled a different way. So as a man of color myself, you know, it's like, I know for a fact that there are injustices out there in the world. But it's like, how do we start to heal from all the stuff that has happened in the past? Even if we go back to like the Rodney King, you know, I feel like we started to make a better headway into the future as far as, you know, as where we came from with blending cultures and everything together, you know, this is like another, this came in and kind of slashed everything and started to separate people again. And it just sucks that these incidences, like especially one with Chauvin, and obviously, you know, they went to court and he got his day in court and he was convicted. Okay. You know, justice was served on his part. But as a community and as a world, how do we heal from that? Especially being diverse and people of color, whether it be white, Hispanic, Mexican, whatever your nationality is. It's like, how do we come back together and start building trust within each other? And obviously something like that, Darius, you know, it's not going to give us the trust because you look at that on TV and you're like, oh, shit. Now the cops are going to come looking at me. They're going to put their knee on my neck. And I know me being an SRO, like you can ask Tristan, I think I did a good part as far as making sure that making sure you guys knew that each one of you guys were important to me and building a relationship with you, no matter what your creed was. So, you know, and I think even out in the field for us, just for this department, we want to build those relationships with you guys to at least get that trust back, you know, and hey, no, and just know like, hey, look, if I have to arrest you, my knee's not going to be on your neck for 9 minutes. You know what I mean? I'm going to handcuff you, pick you up, dust you off if I have to be, and we'll take it from there. But, you know, I know that my partners will hold me accountable the same way that I would hold them accountable.
In the case of George Floyd, may he rest in power, it causes a feeling of infuriation because the police force and the academy, in the eyes of society, are supposed to be there as a symbol of protection and a symbol of safety. And when you you see the case of George Floyd and many others, you see the lives lost at the hands of police officers, and not only the lives that are lost, but the Black lives that are lost and the racial inequality that has stayed within our system for so long. And African Americans and Black people have faced so much oppression within the US for decades and hundreds of centuries. Like, we're talking about the civil rights movement, where we have the Black Panther Party, who was a response to police brutality. And if you're thinking that's 1960s and we're in 2021, where has there been change? We're still advocating for these rights of people that shouldn't be still advocated for. We shouldn't be continuing a fight that has been fought for so long. And in the case of George Floyd, and every other Black life lost at the hands of a police officer creates a feeling of distrust within the youth and generations. And we're seeing this now as Generation Z, and we're growing up with this in the media. We're growing up with the symbol and the image that cops aren't always there in good spirits. Not all cops have those intentions, but the matter of the fact, like Officer Barber stated, it's not even in protocol for an officer's knee to be on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes. Whether it was 8 minutes or 9 minutes, that shouldn't have happened in the first place. He was deemed unarmed and not dangerous, and the fact that he repeated multiple times that he couldn't breathe and that his life was in danger. And not only did he die at the hands of a police officer, but he died at the hands of a white police officer. And that's a bigger issue that we are still facing in America today. And the justice that was served with his conviction of second and third degree murder in his case is not justice enough, because the true justice that can be made is systematically within our federal government and at the federal level through legislation and through the perception of society, because people have been so focused on going through legislation and doing it and making sure he's convicted. But the true core of the oppression that people of color and minorities are still facing in America today is not just from now. It's from when we created the US, when the Declaration was signed, when they're facing years of oppression and systematic racism. There's no reason why a person of color or Black men on the street should feel that they are at danger and they have to watch their every single move. That is not how you should live freely. Our rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If those aren't guaranteed and your inalienable rights as an American citizen, then change has not even begun. Change, you're 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And nothing is truly going to be changed until society changes their views and everything is changed at the systematic core of our federal government.
What does that look like to you, the change?
The change to me is being able to have, like we're having this discussion right now, not everybody has this relationship with officers. Every single officer I have in my life has been a great role model and a great inspiration and a great influence. Now, the officers that we see in the media, we never see the good cops in the media. We always see the bad cops. And we always see these instances of police brutality and the Black lives that have been lost with unarmed kids. Like, we're watching teenagers' life be taken at the hands of police officers. So I feel like as our generation's growing up, we are the ones that are trying to advocate for this change. And we did this through the peaceful protest of Black Lives Matter, and we're going to continue to fight for racial justice, whether that's when we're advocating for Black Lives Matter, for just simple equal rights and equal equality in our society. And the fact that other minorities are being targeted as well, Asian Americans in America are feeling very unsettled currently right now too. So we're the generation that needs to advocate for this change. And it's the people's views, honestly, because I can't understand how someone could deem another person of less right and less equality, because at its heart, we're all people. And it's really disheartening because we're 15 to 17 and we are advocating and use our voices more than the adults that are supposed to serve as our role models and our influences in our lives. But we don't have the same power as other adults in our lives do. Who wants to listen to the teenager that is advocating for the rights of millions across our country rather than having the already renowned respect as an adult? So once people start to actually listen, open their ears, and take the input of our generation and truly advocate change within society and take it to Congress, take it to the House, make sure that we are systematically making a change where we're not having voter suppression, we're not having these kids be scared for their lives in their day-to-day, walking to school, driving their car. When you get pulled over, you shouldn't have the fear that your life could end at that moment. And the fact that that is still a factor that people have to consider, that's where the change starts.
I know that the majority of you guys have good or great relationships with your SROs, but I'm curious, and anyone can answer, on with George Floyd and all the other videos and pictures that you guys have seen of police brutality, has it changed or shaped your opinion of us differently, even though you know you have a good relationship with at least some of us? As a whole, does it change your opinion about law enforcement? I see you thinking over there, Tristan. What you got for us?
Okay, so like my aunt is a sheriff, you know, so I've always been around police officers and things like that. Like her buddies come to my birthday parties. And growing up, I was always taught, like, if you see a police car, you don't have to tense up. Like, they're here to protect you. If you're not following the speed limit, they're trying to keep you safe, you know? But after George Floyd's death, it made me realize that not everyone grows up hearing those things, that this person's looking out for you, that person's protecting you. And for a lot of people, it's the exact opposite. Like, hey, if you see a cop, run. If you see a cop, head down, walk the other direction. So it was really eye-opening to me because I'd never been exposed to a different viewpoint. And I think, like Shai was saying, you can go around saying the system's broken, but if you're not going to do anything to fix it, then what's the point? It's not necessarily that everyone's racist, because that's not the standard view anymore. But it's that the system was built against minorities. You know, they're unproportionately affected, even with poor and with minorities and poor communities. So I think the change has to happen in your heart, and the change has to happen in the legislative branch. And if we're not going to do our part to vote people who, believe like we do, or to vote people who are putting emphasis on the issues that we care about, like police brutality, then discussions like this are pointless unless we actually make a movement to change it.
So kind of going off of what Tristan said, that's kind of why we want you guys here. So we want to ask you, like, what are things that you want to see from police officers within your own community? What are things that we can do to bridge those gaps? What are things that we can do to teach you, hey, this is why we do what we do? Does that make sense? Like, are there any ideas that you have? Any topics of discussion or anything like that where we can, hey, this is a great way to get to kids, so let's try to teach them in this manner or this manner or this manner. Kind of like platforms, right? Social media, like transparency. I feel like our department does a great job with putting things out there immediately. Like if we have something, hey, this is going on. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but just so you know, we'll get to it when it does. And that's on the story immediately, right? I think as a department, we try to work on that. And I can speak on our department because I'm on this side of it, right? But of course, I want to ask you guys, like, what are things that you want to see more of from us as officers?
One of my questions was actually, besides being an SRO, how do you feel that our community could have a closer relationship between Chino PD and our youth? Because we get to have these great discussions and this great relationship and this transparency. As you were stating about the Instagram, I have seen all of your guys' posts and the updates with the community and making sure that we all stay in the same loop and nobody's left out, because having that transparency is so important within a community because it feels like you're not isolated, you're not left out, you're not excluded. And I have always had a great relationship with officers and our SROs on campus. I feel like for more community involvement with other youth, because the kids that you typically talk to are the really good kids or the kids that are in trouble. So we need to find that in between so we have every kid's included in that conversation and that has this platform of discussion, because you guys are hearing our voice right now and it's so amazing that we have this platform, but not every kid has that platform. So this is where we move forward to advocate for those kids too. Like, let's have a relationship with not just the really good kids and the really bad kids, but everybody in between. Like, maybe go to a few games and be like, hey, how are you? Or have these events where you have the integration of like the high school kids and elementary kids and officers, maybe at a city event. And I feel like that's gonna create the sense of more of a relaxed relationship and being able to go up to an officer and be like, hey, how are you? How's your day? I remember you from this and this and that. And creating that, you know who we are and we know who you guys are, is so important and switches that perception of our youth that is growing up with this terrible and negative influence in the media about what's surrounding police officers, which isn't the whole truth, because we know that most police officers are great people and we respect you tremendously and we love that you guys provide your lives and your service to keep us safe, and we're aware of that. So being able to have that relationship and that back and forth, I feel is like so important.
Can I add something? I'll answer this one. I think Barber has done a great job in this, because in our rallies, ASBEE goes to him and say, hey, Barber, we need you to dance up on stage and lip sing in our rally. And he's up there in front of everyone. He's cheering. Everyone's yelling for him. And it really helps to humanize him. And it helps our student body to see, like, he's a dad. He's, he a great lip singer over there. But they don't just see him as like Officer Barber. They see him as a part of the community. And he does this too. He comes to all of our football games. I have a picture of him wearing cow ears. And, he just lets everyone know that he's here with us, not to be looking over us. He's here to participate with us and keep us safe and stuff.
So Tristan, let me ask you that, because I'm glad you brought that up. No one knows that I did the whole lip sync battle. But for you to be able to see me in regular clothes, going up on stage and doing a surprise cameo, like, how did that make you feel, knowing like, hey, that's my SRO, like I did it on my day off and I totally surprised you guys. But how did that make you feel, knowing like I was up there, I was there to support you guys, like giving my time, like just so you guys felt special?
Let's see. it made me feel good. It made me want to be on your team. Like, it made me want to root for you, you know, like, yeah, Barber, get it, you know. Everyone had their phones up, you got flashlights going up. And I think it helps to unite people when they have fun together. And that's like a great way is participating in like rallies and things like that, or like lunch activities. And I know like Officer Torres is new, but I could go up to her right now and say, hey, like, can you do this in a rally for us? Or like, can you say this part? Can you play in a skit? And she would do it like 100%. And I think it really helps to grow that relationship with the students.
When we had Officer Tillman on our campus, I don't know if you guys saw the video, but he kind of went viral.
Kind is an understatement.
Yeah, dancer for sure. And he rehearsed, which I thought was crazy. When Officer Tillman was on our campus, we used to have lunchtime activities, and he was always out there with the kids and always dancing and danced at our rallies. And he created this amazing relationship with the students. And even Officer Mason, now that he's been here for a month, and we already know that his door is always open. And we can pop in and be like, hey, what's up? How's your day going? And it's nice to see a smile on his face. And you have that smile right back going at him behind the mask, of course. Stay safe. But I feel like that's what it's all about. Being able to have that great relationship with your SROs on campus, because you guys are there for us and we're there for you guys as well. Mm-hmm. And to answer your question, I feel like we have a responsibility as well to reach out to our police officers. Be like, hey, here's our schedule for the season. If you guys want to pop by and watch a game, or maybe it's a rivalry game, because those are always so fun. And they're like city events anyways. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it goes both ways. There's always responsibility on both sides, and nothing is ever truly one-sided. So we can give you guys information and be like, oh, we'll come out and we'll support whatever high school you guys are playing, and be able to create that student to officer to police department to school relationship, and have that true community feeling and just a great relationship there, and build it. And you know, when we graduate, we know that we had something there, and you can be like, bye, like, we thank you for everything, and knowing that on both ends everything was given, and so full-heartedly and genuinely.
Thank you so much. Not to put you guys all on the spot, but you gentlemen over here, or ladies, do you guys have any questions? I know we were talking a bit, but the reason why we got together this evening too was to answer questions as well. And so we just want to open that up if you guys have any questions or comments, which I know you do. I see you.
Yeah, so Officer...
If you guys want to go back to it, that's okay, but we do want to be able to have a lot of discussion this evening, but also like answer your guys' questions, because that's so important. Is if we can give clarity and understanding, that's what we want to do.
Yeah, so Officer Torres brought up the topic of social media, and I think that that's a great topic because of the fact that so many things diffuse through that one platform. And so I think obviously with the George Floyd situation, obviously a lot of people focus on the negatives. And so I want to ask you guys, how has social media affected your department as a whole? Like your thoughts, your perceptions, like have you like ever thought about how things would change once everything got out?
I think social media pretty much, you take the goods and the bads with it, okay, right? So if you have something that you want to get out there, especially if it's one-sided and it's negative, and you're pushing this concept of, hey, the police did this wrong, let's blast this out on social media. Not everyone does their research, and not everyone gets to look at, you know, things that happen or get the entire story. They just get like maybe typically what you see on Instagram or whatever, like a 10-second video of something happened, but you don't get the other 5 minutes that happened before that led up to an event. So I mean, social media is good for putting out information, and like the negative part of it from what I see is, you know, you don't get the full story when you get social media. It's almost hearsay, and it's a kind of gossip. So, I mean, our social media platform has been great because we get notifications out to the city about things that are going down. Our community interactions, like Cheyenne said, like we have barbecues, you know, toy giveaways, all that stuff, and we put on social media. I mean, so it's our good way of showing them, hey, these are positive things, and not only that, but to show the negative stuff. Like, hey, the other day we had a pursuit. They crashed onto the 71 freeway and we got all the people in custody, but also to show like, hey, look, this happened as well. So yeah, it can be nice and cushy, and also, we're just being transparent about the stuff that we're doing out in the streets and that we're taking down. So that's even if we're getting guns off the streets, drugs, whatever, we put that on social media as well. It's just being transparent. So for us as a whole, from the Chino Police Department, I think we've been doing a great job as far as utilizing our social media platform to give out all the information that we can to the residents in our city. And again, things that transpire like George Floyd, it's, you create a narrative and you push it, and it's what you take from it that comes up on your feed, right? Because that's one police interaction over the 800,000 plus police officers there are in the United States. That's one interaction, and and we all don't want to be painted with that same brush of being, hey, we're killers or anything like that, because especially when we have people go out there doing good work, and we don't want to take that away. And just like Tristan said, I'm very a people person, and I like to make people laugh. And if you're ever around me, and that's my attitude that I carry out with me in the field too. I'll do whatever to make someone else laugh. And Tristan knows when it's business. But other than that, we have great relationship with our community, and I can talk to anyone, whatever they are. So, I think social media, again, it's a good thing, but it can be utilized in a negative way as well.
You asked how it negatively affected our department as a whole, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say it hasn't negatively affected our department at all, because our department has always been very well known to have a great relationship with our community, and we're a very unique department in that when all this was going down and you were having riots and stuff like that, we weren't concerned about it. We were prepared for it, but we weren't concerned about it. We had people, if you follow our Instagram, you'll see every other day people from the community coming to drop off like gift bags and goodies to show their support, because they know that we serve our community and we invest in the best training so that we don't make mistakes like some of these other officers. But it has affected some of us individually. Like for me, example, I have family members being like, why did this cop do this, this and that? Why are you guys always doing this and that? And I'm like, well, I can't speak for their agency. I can't speak for their department. So I think as far as like personally, my friends and family, they do question my field more. But as a department, as a whole, our community has been very supportive of us, and social media hasn't even bumped our groove at all.
I have another question. So you mentioned like you were training and things like that. And then on the topic of training, I want to know like what percentage or what portion of your training is about de-escalation, because I know that's so important when you walk into a situation, especially like we were talking to Torres the other day, and she says when you walk in, you don't know what's going to happen. Everyone's unpredictable. So how much time do they really teach you guys to de-escalate the situation, to be prepared and try not to use violence as the first solution?
Well, hello, Ms. Tristan. Good question. At this department, I came from another department where it was so many officers, and training has a factor of money, right? And at Chino Police Department, the city takes care of this department so much, we are able to train a lot, more than a lot of agencies. And the number one thing is de-escalation. Even with me being a newer officer, and we'll go through scenarios. And one scenario, I went hands on a guy, and the first thing they told me was, how come you didn't de-escalate it? They preached that from day one, because the last thing we wanted to is get into a use of force where we hurt somebody or get ourselves hurt. So de-escalation is the number one thing at Chino PD.
And to piggyback on that, not only do we receive de-escalation training, we also have a cadre geared towards dealing with people who are in crisis. It's our crisis intervention team. And we've gone through at least 40 hours of training plus, and we also train quarterly on dealing with people who are in psychosis, because a lot of times that's when you deal with people who are going through some form of state or having an episode, and utilizing the techniques that we've learned to de-escalate, and especially with someone with mental health issues. So not only do we have our patrol bureau who deals with de-escalation, we also have a team dedicated to also dealing with people who are in a mental state or psychosis.
And it's not just training, it's also practice. So every single contact we have, it's typically 2 officers per person or per contact that we have. So if Officer Mason and I were contacting you for whatever reason, you're having a bad day, you're stressing out, we always have a contact officer and a cover officer. So the contact officer is the one that does the talking, the cover is the protection. So Officer Mason is the one contacting you, try to calm you down, trying to de-escalate, while I'm the backup, making sure nobody's trying to swoop up on him from behind, making sure you're not grabbing anything. So we always start with somebody trying to talk the situation down to get a better result, while you have somebody there standing by for protection. So we don't just train on it. It's literally in every call that we do.
Going back a little bit, so with all the George Floyd stuff and just because of the strong negative outlook on police after this event, is there anything that Chino PD did specifically after this tragic death? I'm sure you guys had discussions, but just what was not your personal initial reaction, but what did your department do as a whole? What was your reaction, and what do you think that you could do better? Or did you reflect on yourself? Just anything like that.
Well, I think we kind of have to be impartial to a lot of things and not kind of give our opinions to things. However, our chief, we found that there was going to be a peaceful protest in our city. And it wasn't like, hey, let's shut this peaceful protest down. He was actually so kind-hearted as to sit with the people who were planning this protest and see what it is that they needed. Hey, do you want us to block off a street? Do you want us to get you guys a microphone so when you guys come to the police department, you guys can have a rally outside? And it wasn't like, hey, we're gonna bring the whole force in and but no, we wanted you guys to have your First Amendment right to peacefully protest. And he took that upon himself to make it happen. And again, it's like, hey, what can we do as a police department to help you guys out? You didn't have a lot of police agencies going out there to do that. So that's what makes it kind of unique.
And our chief also hosted a virtual conference called Healing Our Land. I don't know if you guys have Facebook or if you saw it, but it was pretty much the chief and some other members of our community on Facebook Live having an open dialogue between everybody. And you had people that were commenting on Facebook Live asking questions, and the chief, they were open, transparent, and they asked all their questions. So just to build the bond between the community and us.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I really think that that's super important to have that connection, not only with the youth, just with the community in general. And I think that's something that Chino PD is great at. And another thing that I wanted to ask is, because of your guys' just awesome kind of philosophies on these things and how you guys react as a department, what do you think that you guys could do to make other departments like that? Because obviously we can see how great you guys are and how you guys would never do something like any of these tragic events that have been happening in the media lately. We totally feel that you guys are always there for us. The SROs are always on campus and really great officers. But just what do you think that you could do to make other police in other areas, just even not only in the state, just across the world and nation, what could you do to improve the police system as a whole? Do you think that you could spread this through social media or anything like that?
I think the best thing we can do is word of mouth. And the reason that's the best thing is because, like Officer Barber said earlier, is training is based off of money. Chino's very fortunate to be a financially stable city, and we can afford to have training all the time. He came from a different agency, the Sheriff's Department. I also came from the Sheriff's Department. I got almost no training, and it's because you have thousands and thousands of employees. We only have a couple hundred. They simply can't afford it, and that's just because of how their city are. But we have places like the Spectrum area, and all those bring in revenue for us to be able to have this training. So unfortunately, it's great that we're good and we can spread word of mouth of how we do our training, and we do. There's some officers that write articles to send out or do virtual trainings to send out, but unfortunately, if these agencies don't have the funds, then they're not able to do as much training as we are.
And also social media. If you look at our social media page, we put stuff on there, and again, it's maybe an agency that will follow us, or get tagged in some form of Instagram post. They'll be like, hey, look, this is what Chino's doing. Hey, let's reach out to them, So again, social media can also play a factor in that.
I would have to add to that with social media and everything else is, number one, be the example. So we're the officers out there on the streets, right? We have coworkers. Be the example, set the example. That way, when we go to trainings, because we attend trainings from other cities, right? Hey, I want to go to this class, but it's not hosted here. We have to go to another city, and a bunch of different agencies train at that place. And they talk about it. Wow, Chino this, Chino that. And we talk about the things that we have. So I think kind of word of mouth, when we have those interactions with other agency and we're able to say, hey, well, they put this on. They host this class. We all work on implicit bias, or we all work on any of these other Common Core classes that we have in our advanced officer trainings. And I think the word of, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. I think my brain was going way faster than my mouth. But just again, be the example and show people what we're made of. Because I guarantee you, and I know I can say, and I'm sure all of them can say, that I work with amazing, amazing peers. Like I can learn something from each and every single one of them, and they are so receptive and so like welcoming, just kind of like how we are with you guys. Our peers are the exact same way. So when you guys see it on the streets with those people, or when other students or other kids, other youth see it with them, they're like, wow, like that's so different. And then they can share that amongst your guys' peers, right? And again, if you want to do the social media platform, we have that social media platform because it is the example of who we are. Yeah.
So we are in the age of social media, as we continue to talk about, right? And the same videos you guys see of officer shootings and use of forces, we see the same videos, right? We also have briefings where we debrief those things so we don't end up in those situations. So other departments, if they're doing their due diligence to see those same videos, to talk to their officers of how they could handle those situations better, is the same way as you guys see it. And that's one thing we do a good job of, and all we can do is hope as those other departments do the same.
Thank you so much. I had another question. When, maybe from some of you that we haven't heard from, when you're around the city and you see an officer that isn't necessarily your SRO, do you guys feel any type of way? Or I would love to hear you guys if it's not someone that's familiar.
How do you feel about that, Wilson?
Do you feel uncomfortable? Or I would love to hear from you.
No, because I do live with one. He is my father, and I don't feel any type of way when I see an officer. But I know that they're here to protect us, so I don't feel like anger towards them, or I don't know the word, but I don't loathe them. I thank them for what they're doing, and I go about my day. That's about it.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
So, I can probably, I can't speak off for the whole community, but I can say, even if I don't see, any officers that I do know, personally, I know, not really to fear, but, I'm fortunate enough to say that because in the city that we live, but I do know, other cities are not, and other people from different communities aren't fortunate enough. And I don't know, it kind of sucks just because, when you hear about the police, you're like, okay, they're here to help you, but other people don't have that perspective. And going back to the whole George Floyd situation, regardless of someone's race, color, ethnicity, or whatever it is, he's a human being at the end of the day, no matter what his background or if he did drugs or he was convicted or whatever, it's just he's a human being. He should be treated fairly. And it kind of sucks to see that it's around the world like that. But, I'm fortunate enough to say that at least when I'm in this community and in Chino, I don't have to feel that type of way.
Thank you.
Can I go back to something before?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there was a question that I think one of the SROs had asked about how the youth could connect more, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had this kind of an idea. It was to connect to kind of what Cheyenne was saying, how it's either the really good kids or the people that are getting in trouble. And I think a way that we could reach that kind of happy medium is maybe we could have some sort of anonymous survey. And I think that would really if that was implemented at schools, it would avoid any prior negative relationships that either troubled students would have, or even minorities that just unfortunately are taught to kind of run and hide from cops. So I think that a survey, maybe throughout the schools, would really benefit us. Like, I think that would just get every single student's response as to what maybe their feelings are. Like, what if they had a message to cops, what could they say? Like, something like that, just free responses you can hear directly from the youth, because that's like what this is for. But I think that would be a great way to reach the people that aren't here right now, or people that are in that kind of middle section where they're not going to things like this, but they're also not getting in trouble.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So if you go into my room, I have a whiteboard, and what I wanted to do was, the QR codes. We all know those because those are like the new menus. I wanted to post those around campus or on my door, and I wanted to create that survey. And I had asked Miss Renee, I asked her, well, what are things that are good to add on there? Because it's so much. It could be so open-ended. But I want to know, like, maybe, okay, areas of concern. Is there places that need to be monitored more? Because, hey, these bathrooms, kids are using the vape pens. Like, there's only one of me, right? And then I have 4 awesome security guards, but to hear from the kids themselves. So, like, what kinds of things would you like to see on that survey? Because that's something that I do want to create. I just want to kind of get the idea and the outline of what should be added on something like that.
Well, totally, like you said, with the areas of concern regarding like the school matters, I think that would be great, obviously, because we want to feel safe at our schools. And of course, you guys, just your presence being there makes us feel safer. But I wonder if some people might not feel that same way just because of the connection that they don't have. So maybe we could have kind of like, let me think for a second.
Well, so I'll kind of help you out. So, like, one of them was going to be, like, types of presentations. So I would love to get into the classroom more. And so I would love to present something, but it's like, okay, well, what are things that you want to see presented? Or I would love to have, like, a scenario training, like, during lunchtime, right? My office is big enough to do something like that, where I can bring kids in, and it can be just whoever wants to come, and I can put on a scenario. I can give them the equipment, like obviously the fake baton. We have like little plastic, like gun, taser thing like that. It'd be in a controlled environment, and I would give them a scenario. I'd have actors, and I'd say, okay, here you go. Like, pretend you're the officer, and then you would act that out. And then after they're done, I would, okay, tell me about how you felt, this and that. And if I could, I would like to do like three of those, right? And then after those, we sit together. Okay, how'd it feel? Like, what were your thoughts? Like, was it as easy as you thought? Because some things I can control that scenario where it can be one scenario and it could be another one where it just takes off so immediately that now you gotta think on your feet, kind of just like how we do. Yes, we are equipped, but there are things that we can't control from the outside factor, right? So things like that.
I think just simply like we, not only do we need kind of to hear from the youth, but I think, of course, we need more connection, and something that I think you guys could do is just maybe do something through school where we simply know more about you guys and what you do, what your purpose is. And that kind of brings me into a question, like, what exactly, like, just for everyone watching and for anyone that's curious, because even I didn't know until recently, like, what is the purpose of an SRO? Like, what do they do at schools, and what is your main, like, priorities? What do you attempt to do when making a connection with a student? All those things, like all the scenarios.
So, and that's a good question. And obviously, our goal being on campus is safety, right? So obviously, we live in a climate where there are active shooters and cowards who come into classrooms and schools and movie theaters and take people's lives, right? So our number one goal there is safety. Also, community engagement. Engaging with you guys. You guys are still the community, regardless if you guys are in school or not. So it's building those bridges and that having that connection with you guys. And also, on schools, there's also crimes that are committed, and there's things that we have to handle. So regardless of if that's drugs on campus, hellacious fight on campus, and or someone from the outside trying to come in and we need to stop them, we're there for safety. As far as building a relationship, I know for me, being an SRO, I had an office. I tried to never be in it, and I was always outside, okay, roaming through different parts of the campus. Because not only that, if I shelter myself in my office, I'm not going to be able to know people's names. I'm not going to be able to know what this kid does. Hey, you play football. Hey, you have class here. Tristan, where was I at for every third period when I was there?
Bothering us in the ASBee room.
Yeah, See, but it was a point. Once the bell rang, I was out walking around. But not only was that good for me to engage with the kids, it was also to see what's going on in and around the school. You know, I can see who's walking the halls and who's not supposed to be there. So, you know, safety is our number one priority, especially for being on school campus, because, you know, it's your guys' safety is paramount. So that's the active role, and it's us being a mentor to you guys. I had an open door policy, or if you saw me, and one thing you had brought up was, you know, we talk to all the good kids, we never talk to the bad kids. I've had several closed door conversations with some of the kids that I would have deemed bad. I'm not going to throw their names out there, but when I first started, one of the kids reached out to me, and he was kind of on the fence of where his life was going to swing. So I was a little apprehensive of giving him my personal number, but I could tell he was in crisis, and he was. And he would reach out to me, "Hey, Officer Barber, what do you think about this?" And even now, I see him, and he's done great and totally completely changed his life. So not only do we build a relationship with the good kids, we build it with the bad kids. And just like whenever I have arrested someone from the school, I'm like, hey, it's not the end of the world. I'm not gonna think anything less of you. I'm just doing my job at this point. But I never stopped. Hey, how you doing, so and so? Hey, how you doing, so and so? Like, I never felt like they were a black sheep or an outcast, you know, because we still have to work in that environment all together, right? And ultimately, the goal is to see you guys through graduation. One thing I took pride in was sitting on the stage, and after graduation was done, I had 1 million people wanting to come up and take a photograph with me, saying how cool it was for me to be their SRO. So I take that, and it feels amazing. It's a great feeling to see you guys accomplish stuff as a youth and go forward. And, you know, and even when I see you guys around the city, I say, "Hey, Officer Barber," you know, it's a good feeling. And that's even from some of the bad kids. So, you know, it's building those relationships no matter how they come. And I think that if we do have to make some form of arrest or anything like that, it's a lesson learned. And just for them, especially for me to enforce it, like, hey, look, you screwed up this time. Let's not go down this route again. You know, and that's just kind of building them up. And, hey, Officer Barber has my back, just so they feel that way, you know?
I just want to say that Barber and Torres have done a great job at Chino, because they're always there smiling and saying hi to everyone. And, you know, the security guards, like, they do help you out, but they're there every day. And so you kind of overlook them, you know, you look past, they're just blending in at that point. And because they're there every day, I feel like they're not as focused on safety, because they're going to dress code someone, or they're going to stop them from selling some chips to another person. And I feel like people don't focus on the same things that our SROs do. And I think that you guys do a really good job as, like, trying to prioritize what needs to be taken care of.
So when it comes, especially with me being a new SRO, the main thing for me is that middle word, the resource, right? I want to be a resource for you guys. And same thing I told you guys when you came to my office. My job here is to be that resource and be that bridge for you for whatever questions you guys have. Whether you don't want to ask your teacher or your parents at home, Officer Mason's there to help you guys. My goal, like Reggie said, is to see you guys walk across that stage and be better than me. One day I'm going to have children. Their job is to be better than me. Right now, you guys are my students, my children. My goal is for you guys to be better than me and attack this world to make it a better place at the end of the day.
Like Officer Barber said, the purpose of our assignment is your safety. However, I think we all have the same purpose of why we joined the SRO program, and it's to be a trusting adult to you guys. So I know for me, for example, I was always getting in trouble in high school, and I had one school staff member that was always dragging me in her office, and I was getting in trouble, but she poured into me and she invested in me. And that one teacher, that one trusting adult was the reason why I got on the right path and ended up being in law enforcement. And I know school, for the majority of students, is their safe place. You know, some of us may have a nice home, but if you really know your friends, the majority of you guys do not have a nice home and do not go home to warmth and love and comfort. And we all want to be that one adult, one of many, hopefully, that are there for you when you come to school, so you can trust us and, you know, we can pour into you and invest in you so that you guys, you know, don't end up on the same path as a family member or someone close to you.
Yeah, I'd have to say it does go like safety, resource, being the trusting adult. Then I'd have to say mentorship. Like, we want to invest in all of the youth as much as we can. And we try to take every opportunity to do so. And I think seeing even the bad kids, and I wouldn't even call them the bad kids because I still will always wave to them or always check on them and be like, how are your grades? Like, they better be better. And I had one of my kids who would be the constant troublemaker of last year. I think Officer Mason was with me when I went to his house by accident, and I didn't know he was gonna be there because I went for a different reason. And he was like, "Oh, hey!" And it's just seeing that change, seeing them grow up. Like, we get to see you guys as freshmen to seniors, and I think that is one of the most rewarding things because you see how much you mature, what your goals are, what you guys are working towards, and like how great you guys are becoming, like from young adults to adults. And I think for us to even have any little piece of that, like any piece of inspiration that we could have instilled in any of you guys, we take that home. That's like our biggest takeaway from this position. So of course, I think our number one is to see you guys be great, successful human beings and do your thing in the world. Go to your calling, and here we go. We cheering you on over here at Chino PD.
All of you guys have talked about how you want to be that trusting adult and that resource and that mentor and watch your kids grow up and graduate and follow their calling.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you guys feel? Because like when you're talking about it, like my heart, like it's just like, oh my gosh, like it's nice to hear that. And it's so heartwarming, it's so genuine, and you can tell you guys are passionate about what you do and you signed up for the SRO program for a reason. So when you're spending your days on campus and you're having these day-to-day interactions with all these kids and you're acting as that mentor or that trusting adult, and most trusting adults and mentors are there for those kids and they don't even know it. So when you're in that position of being such an influence in these teenagers and young adults' lives, how does that make you feel? Because you're such a big part of who they become as a person and how they've shaped themselves, like from, because high school to adulthood, even from junior high to high school, like you're a completely different person. And taking part of a key part of a teenager's development and they're figuring out who they are and what they want to be and what they want to do. How does that make you guys feel?
For me, it's like I said, I looked at it as you guys are our kids. You know what I mean? So just like Officer Torres said, like I would do grade checks myself because and I would pull whoever was in the class. Hey, come to my office. What's up with your grades? Like, and then again, just the whole resource part of it. Hey, do we need to get you in here? Is there something your counselors missed? You know, but ultimately, it makes you feel successful because you were able to groom these kids coming in as squirrely freshmen to now being mature seniors who are accepting college college admissions to go off to places like Harvard or where did Nico go? He went to some Ivy League college, but you know he went to an Ivy League college and you watch them grow and you watch them do this. So it's an amazing feeling because it makes you feel successful. And I think what makes you feel even more successful is the kids who were a little bit troublesome, to see them grow up and to getting in trouble, to figuring out, hey, this is where I need to be, doing credit recovery, and ultimately getting the diploma. Because obviously you have your kids who have a ton of support, but then you have the kids who they're single parent, maybe not English speaking as a first language. Mom's living in the back of a garage on 5th Street, and they don't have the support. So it's seeing like, hey, I know where you're coming from, and I'm gonna help you out the best that I can, just so you can get there too. Because everyone wants that dream, right? Everyone wants to walk across the stage. So it's doing whatever you can, especially and it's not for recognition or anything like that. It's just like, hey, look, I genuinely care and I want to see you get there. So yeah, you get on them because they don't have that support at home. And sometimes coming to school is like their only meal. And, you know, it's helping them out. So that's where the whole mentor thing comes in for me, because I know there was plenty of times where I would take money out of my own pocket and help kids out, because I had a kid who was truant for 5th period every day because she didn't have the right PE clothes and she didn't want to dress out. So she was getting an F. I'm like, this is unreasonable. So I went to the little 99-cent or the clothing mart right there off of Riverside and Central and got her some sweats and a shirt. And that's all it takes for some kids. and they're thankful for it. And they'll look back on life and hopefully they'll be like, man, I remember that Officer Barber did that to me that one time and got my grade up and I graduated. But I think seeing all the kids, and again, sitting on the stage and watching success come and you be able to hand them a diploma as they walk away and giving them a hug, hey, Officer Barber, thank you so much for everything you did. I think that's the most rewarding part of being an SRO.
Sometimes I will honestly say that you feel like you don't do enough. So Tristan and Madison were there when I got pulled for like 4 different things at one time. And I was like, I was trying to have a conversation with them. I'm sorry, I'll be back. And I was running back. I'm sorry, I'll be back. And like I got called for something else. And you want to be there. There's almost over 2,000 students at every school. Or, well, at BVU, you have a lesser number. But you want to be there for as many as you can. And like kind of how Barbara's explaining, all these kids have different situations. They come from different homes. They come from different family lives. They come from, hey, mom or dad's not in the picture and it's aunt raising them. And you kind of just, you wish that you had more time to spend with everybody and kind of pour into everybody's bucket as much as you can, but you got to divide that. And of course, it's rewarding. It's one of the best jobs that I think that I'll probably ever work, especially in this assignment. And I think the reward is bigger for us than it is for you guys almost.
It's okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next topic. But if I may, Brian, put you on the spot and ask you a question. So as a student in high school regarding safety and something that's common that happens are school shootings, and especially with the climate that we're in, I think we can all agree this whole year has unfolded a lot of like just tension, right? Just with everything that's unfolded from COVID to the riots, the civil unrest, all of that. What are your thoughts? Do you ever feel fearful that could happen, or like how is that for you as a student? And do you feel safer knowing that you have a school resource officer there?
Really, I don't fear for myself. When it comes down to it, I fear for the bigger schools. Like my sister, she goes to Chino Hills, and my other sister, she goes to, I don't remember what it's called, but I'm scared for them, if anything. But I do feel safer. I do feel better with school resource officers there, because that's what they're there for, to protect us, for our safety. And at the end of the day, that's like, I don't know what to say, really.
It's okay.
What about, thank you so much. What about you, Darius?
I will say, being that we have our school resource officers, I feel a lot more comfortable being at school. Like, to know that, okay, if something does happen, it's like, okay, they're there for that reason. So it makes me feel like I could get up in school, go to school, be like, okay, I got Officer ASBEE right there for protection and all that stuff. And even just not even for protection. Like, there's been plenty of times where, like, I'll go to, like, my first thing to do is, like, when I see Officer ASBEE, I go straight up to her just to say hi. It's, like, my first thing to do. And I feel like, she, I kind of feel like she kind of makes me feel more comfortable just around officers, coming from a background where, like, we're taught not to associate with officers. You're looked at weird from the community I come from. You're looked at weird for talking to officers. So it's like that kind of opened the door for me to be like, okay, I'm more comfortable to do that now.
Darius, do you ever get any pushback on having a positive relationship with a police officer?
Yes.
From peers?
Yes.
Yes?
Let me jump in and ask on that, because, you do say hi to me like every single day, every single break, and you're very happy to do so. But then I see your crew like probably rolling their eyes like, why is this fool gotta go talk to her every break? Do they say anything to you?
I would say my friend group, not really. I'll say I get more from the non-Mexican, like non-blacks and non-Mexican kids. Like, those ones are the main ones, like, oh, you're black, you're not supposed to be talking to an officer. So it's like, I can see, like, when I do talk to you during school, I can see, like, I get eyes looking at me and stuff, but, like, I don't really care. I mean, like, I am who I am, so they're who they are, and they feel how they feel. I feel how I feel.
Do you feel like for you because you said just kind of growing up like in your community, like with your family, has that been difficult as like your relationship with a police officer? Has that made it a little bit more difficult for you to have that, or has it been uncomfortable for you?
I will say no. Morely like my dad's side, they're supportive about it. It was like mainly like my mom's side of the family. It's like they're like basically like I've been called by my own family like, oh, you're informing, you're this, and the third. So it's like that's cool and all, but it's more. I feel like it's more better to have a connection with a cop than not to.
Absolutely.
Darius, would you ever? And I've asked several kids this because I always want to see where the answer would be. Would you ever consider a career in law enforcement?
No.
Why?
It's not even for no bad reasons. I know myself and I don't have the right temperament for this job. So since I know that I'm gonna choose to step away from places I
Yeah.
know I would not conduct myself the proper way.
Okay, I can accept that. One thing I could never fathom is the whole snitch aspect of it. You know, it's like, hey, you talk crap about the profession, but you can't hold your own people accountable. You know,
That-
so I've had several conversations, but no, that's a very
Yeah.
mature answer. If you know your
Like-
temperament and you know it's not for you,
I
I'm
feel
good
you
with
on that one. I feel like being that going from like junior high to high school, we're always taught, oh, don't snitch, don't do that. That makes you look bad. But then when you really like break it down, it's like I'm not gonna know you in about 17 years from now, maybe
Yeah.
like 4, but I'm not gonna know you, nor am I about to take some type of
Some heat
trouble,
from
man,
you.
any of that because you decided to do something or
Yeah.
we decided to do this together. No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
No,
Because
I get it.
just like, it
It's-
makes me kind of like, because when people tell me, cause I'm like most people, I've been in a situation where people be like, oh, don't snitch, don't do this. It's like, why? Like, I'm not about to get in trouble. I'll get in more trouble for taking something for you than just doing it on my own. So that's where I stand with that one.
So,
Fair
so
enough.
on that topic, I remember being in high school and fights would break out, and we all know what we do when fights break out. Everyone runs and huddles around the quad area and watches that. So regarding fights or regarding seeing drugs and different things, how do you guys feel as students, especially students that are connected to your SROs? Darius, if you would mind talking about that.
All right. Well, being that I'm from that background and I've been through that stuff, I'll say for the fights to start off, I probably was more of the person who was fighting. So I don't know. I feel like that's kind of just in high school in general. I feel like that's kind of what we look for. It's like, okay, as we go into high school, we're always told like, okay, stay prepared. Well, at least I was told, stay prepared because you know there's always going to be a day that you're going to have to fight. That was the most truest thing I've ever been told in my life. So, and as far as like the drugs thing, I feel personally like majority of it's stupid because I feel like out of all places, school though, like you got, and just speaking on my school, we're only there till 106. And you're telling me that you cannot wait until after 106 to handle whatever you gotta handle with and accordingly, like. So I just feel in all like just with fights and drugs, it's kind of like stupid that we have that at school. But
How do you think, given that these are just experiences and things that you guys are exposed to, or you guys see this happening all the time with your peers, how and what way can the SROs help to prevent that? Or how, from your opinion as a student seeing it, how do you think would be a helpful way for them to go about that or to act more in prevention, like from your guys' perspective? Or do you guys play a role in that?
Or would you guys even feel comfortable? Okay,
Yeah,
and I'll give you an example. When 2 years ago when we had all those fake Xanny bars where we didn't know what was in them and people were like collapsing on the floor and going to the hospital on a daily. Would you guys feel comfortable like, man, this student body is getting plagued with this medication that's probably fake and could potentially kill someone, would you feel comfortable coming up and like, hey, Officer Barber, can I talk to you in your office? And I know who's doing this, and it's not cool.
I would feel perfectly comfortable with telling you that, because at that point, it's more about your life. I could care less what everybody at school is going to think about me, because for just being at our school, I wouldn't say that's the norm, because I don't want to give our school a bad name, but yes, that's the norm.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen that multiple times where I'll be leaving school and it's like, oh, this is literally how the conversation will go. Dang, another kid got took to a hospital? Hey. So it's like, to see that, it's like, okay, what if one of these days, because nobody's telling nobody nothing, what if somebody dies right in front of you? So that's where I put, like, I feel like I'd rather let an officer know or let somebody know at our school, because I'm not trying to see nobody die. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a good sight. I'm cool off that. So that's where I'm at with it.
What about you, Maddie?
I think, once again, going along with, like, he would feel so comfortable, like, going up to it. I think anyone else would as well, but I guess putting the bad name on them would definitely affect them. Because ever since we were little, we would get taught snitches get stitches.
Yeah.
You know, that was a popular thing. If you snitched on someone, then something, like, you would get backlash towards you. And so I think that, like, if you guys were to obviously make it known that that students can be comfortable and can talk to you guys, because I think if you remember how you said, Officer Torres, you said how if you did like a rally or something, if you introduced and you told kids that you're there for them, because you said that it's hard for you to make relationships with us, and you're happy that Tristan and I were able to come to you and to talk to you, even if it was about like drama, something on TikTok or something. I think even saying that to the whole like student body, it would be a great thing to do, because then it would obviously build that familiarity with everyone.
Trust me, I'm waiting for COVID to go away.
You got any input, Liz?
Going back to like what they said, like what's a good way to help build relationships? I think I know you guys mentioned it. It's like, you know, walking around school and not like being in your office really helps, only because like personally me, like when they would say like an SRO, I was like, what are they even here for? You know, like we already have security guards, because like I would see like an SRO, I was like, oh, they're here to enforce, like, oh, make sure you're not doing this and that. And ultimately, you know, that's the goal. But it's like, it's good to feel and know that, okay, they're also here if you need something, if you need to talk to someone. And, you know, just knowing that you guys are there to listen, I know it'll help a lot of kids, especially since they don't have that, you know, adult figure or mentorship. Like that would really help.
I think that has to do with us reaching the middle kids. You know, we talked about we're really good at reaching the really good and the really bad. And maybe you're one of the middle kids because you're questioning that. But we would love to hear your guys' advice. You know, you mentioned the survey. Problem with the survey is the middle kids don't always want to participate. And let's be honest, none of you guys check your school email, so we can't send that out. So if you guys have other more innovative ways for us to reach the whole student body, we'd love to hear it, because we're constantly learning and trying to do better to reach the mass majority.
I think how Officer Torres said, like, she wanted to do some presentations and stuff. Like, we're in ASBEE, and we know, like, if we want to put on an event, we got to know who to talk to. You know, if you need a video, you go to the video of teacher. So if you want to do something on, like, drugs or, like, even, like, violence and fighting, things like that, I think reaching out to the health teachers is a really good opportunity, because everyone takes health at some point in high school. It's like a requirement to graduate. And even if it's just one class where you're there and you're introducing yourself and you're talking, you're answering questions and things like that, it can really help to get the conversation started. And, you know, even if someone's not necessarily participating, if they look at their friend and their friend's answering, they're more likely to come up and talk to you.
Yeah, I know I did presentations like the law and justice classes and government when I was helping out with the Constitution and the amendments and everything. But no, just sitting there and having like a normal conversation. I mean, it was cool. Again, you know, you open up the platform to kids ask you questions. And again, from there, they get to know you. So, you know, it's always a good thing for us to be in the classrooms as well. And I totally agree. And I made that a point as well, you know, when I was an SRO to do those things. So no, you're absolutely right. I definitely agree.
So I feel like more like an idea. I feel like you guys should do how, like, you know, the Navy and military guys, how they come out to our school and they'll like set up and just talk and go to different classrooms. I feel like that would be a good use too, because I feel like you'll be able to get more comfortable with all the students. So it's not like, oh, we're just talking to one student. You guys are going around and just getting to getting to know everybody from face and name. I feel like that would help a lot more students to be comfortable. Yeah.
Do you think that should be done at the beginning of the school year or throughout the school year?
I would say throughout the school year. I feel like that would probably be best. So it's like, yeah, you have one in the beginning of the school year, one in the middle, and then one towards the end. So it's like maybe in the beginning, it's like, okay, you didn't have that much students who wanted to talk. We get towards the middle of the year. Now you got maybe a little more students who want to talk. And then hopefully by the end of the year, it's like you got all the students wanting to
Being
talk.
that constant figure.
Yeah.
I got you. That
Like,
makes
I
sense.
feel like you guys should make yourself known, like how you guys already are, how all four of you guys do. So it's like, I feel like just keep doing that and just get more comfortable with everybody.
I feel like the biggest thing about the line of communication within schools, especially high schools, is so hard because you can tell, oh, all teachers, make sure you present this information about school shootings or drugs or whatever's happening on that campus, is not always interpreted and taken the same way with all teachers. I know in the case of, we do a lot of drills, whether it's active shooters or earthquake or fire drills. Some teachers don't do it, some teachers do, some teachers take it with more severity, some teachers don't know enough. So I feel like the line of communication, instead of going from admin to teacher to student, there could be the SRO factor, and having that, kind of how Tristan mentioned with health class, whenever counselors want to distribute messages to the kids, it's a requirement to take English, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, whatever. Maybe having an SRO, and an SRO maybe informs security guard. And just having someone that's not your teacher and not the admin, and who is well educated on whatever the presentation's about, and staying consistent. And having that consistent factor of well-informed information to the student body, where the students realize that these are situations that need to be taken seriously and that could impact them, because we are fortunate enough where we do have a good community and we do have these great relationships with all of our departments, and Chino PD does a really great job of making sure that we are protected and safe. But if there ever is that 1 in a million chance where we are in that situation, we need to make sure that all students are covered, not just 75% of the school, because their teachers are the ones who took it seriously, or they were the ones that actually were informed, or maybe they missed school that one day you guys had the presentation. If it's consistent and if it's always well informed, and if there's putting a name to a face, because we all know we have an SRO, but if you ask half of the student body to point them out or ask them the SRO's name, they're not going to be able to do it. So having that consistent name to a face, and going back on the word, another relationship between the student body, and I feel like that's just a great way to do it, is having those rallies where you're going out and talking to the students, or having those presentations, or just putting yourself out there with the students, because not everybody gets the same information, and the way it's delivered is very different depending on your teacher, depending on your admin, depending on what grade level you are, because how you receive information as a freshman is completely different as how you receive it as a junior or senior. The whole underclassmen, upperclassmen, and maybe how you present the information is dependent on whether you're an underclassman or an upperclassman. Because when you're upperclassmen, you're like, oh yeah, we've been doing this, we know what to do. But if you're a freshman coming in from junior high who just did online school for a year, you're a little more unsure. And so I feel like that's a great way that maybe the SROs can deliver that line of communication, because there's always something in that line that gets stopped.
To get stumped.
I will say that all SROs do presentations in their classrooms, but we can definitely do better on the consistency of it, because, we start off strong, but then, she's been busy all week, so then she gets busy and then it kind of just tails off. So it is a practice that we do, but we do have to be more consistent on it. And we'll maybe try to figure out how to do a game plan on, whether it's once a month or whatever, just so we know that it's actually happening and it just doesn't fall by the wayside.
Adding on to that, I know a lot of the students and even like the teachers and stuff, they just see the SROs as, the police officer on campus. But you guys are a part of the staff, like just as much as the teacher, just as much as the secretary, as the football coach, as everyone. And so I think like Barber did a really good job at participating in our staff basketball games, and events like that. Like ASBEE, we just started staff buddies. And I don't know if you have a staff buddy, but even our ASBEE completely overlooked like our security guards and people like that. So I think it's not only up to you guys, but it's up to us too, like as ASBEE members and even as like leaders of clubs. Like I know you're president of a club or something, but I think it's up to us too to get you guys involved and to reach out.
Absolutely. What we're going to do is we're going to be closing out this evening in a little bit, but before we do so, I did want to open it up. If you guys still had some questions that perhaps we may have not answered yet, I just do want to open up that time for you guys.
I have a question. Tristan, as a Caucasian female, how did the riots make you feel watching them?
I think I'm very fortunate to grow up with friends and family around me who are very supportive and sensitive to the problems and the challenges of other races, of other classes and things like that. So my mom was like, definitely, you're not going to a protest. You're 17. You're not. No. But I think I really sympathized with the cause and stuff. And I supported it like on my social media in the ways that I could. Mm-hmm. But I know not everyone is like that and everyone's allowed to have their different opinions and stuff. But I think for me, it was mostly about seeing someone as a human being, whether that is a police officer, whether that is a victim or a criminal, as you would call them. Mm-hmm. But really putting in the human aspect back into that and seeing like these people have kids. They go to their anniversary dinner every year, just like my parents do, Mm-hmm. And trying to humanize people as much as possible, I think that really helps to gather people and to unite people.
And Cheyenne, as a woman of color as well, what did you take from seeing the peaceful protests kind of transform into like an unlawful assembly with people rioting and looting and the destruction of property and stuff like that? How did that aspect of these protests make you feel?
When I was very supportive, I actually asked my mom if I could peacefully protest, and the only reason I wasn't able to go was due to my safety. But hearing the department's response to how you guys were very supportive is very genuine to the cause, because at the end of the day, we wanted our voice to be heard. Mm-hmm. And in response to Black Lives Matter movement being started off as a peaceful protest and it being turned into looters and rioting and this violence, and even when the protest and the movement was peaceful, it was met with violence. Mm-hmm. It was met with police and lines of National Guard and tear gassing and responses that weren't met when there was the incitement at the Capitol, because purely of Black Lives Matter versus white supremacists at the Capitol. Mm-hmm. And seeing that and the peaceful protest being transformed and into this violent outlook was disheartening, and it was infuriating, because we have our First Amendment right to peacefully protest mm-hmm. and peacefully organize. And we wanted our voice to be heard, and we did it in the most respectful way across the country. And there was hundreds of thousands of people that wanted their voice to be heard for the cause of Black Lives Matter and simply racial equality and human rights. Mm-hmm. And when people take that away, they're taking your First Amendment right away, when the people that were peacefully protesting wasn't necessarily people that were rioting or looting. The people that had that response wanted this negative view and this negative perception of this peaceful protest, because the Black Lives Matter movement and everybody that was protesting peacefully was doing it peacefully. And the fact that people wanted to create this negative perception of this peaceful organization is infuriating, because we just wanted our voice to be heard. And the fact that they associated the looting and the rioting with the Black Lives Matter movement wasn't the point, because if you now, whether there's trustful source or not, if you look at the videos, they weren't necessarily the protesters. It was other people that saw this as an opportunity to get away with this looting and rioting in a violent manner. And violence is never the option. Violence should not be your primary solution. How we were talking about de-escalation and not being met with violence. We talk about it in the civil rights movement, how people wanted to peacefully protest and they're met with violence. And violence is never the first thing. Once you're met with violence, violence is there in return. But when you're peacefully protesting and they put this negative perception, it questions whether you truly have their First Amendment right to peacefully protest. If people are just going to flip this perception of what you truly can and cannot do.
And that's the hard thing with a peaceful protest, because obviously you have extremist groups, right? Like Antifa and some of the other ones who infiltrate Black Lives Matter peaceful protests. So yeah, you have your Black Lives Matter participants who are sitting there, hey, Black Lives Matter peacefully protesting, and then you have this other group who infiltrates them and then starts to cause property damage and stuff like that. And it's hard to, hey, are you with Black Lives Matter or are you with Antifa? So that's what deems it an unlawful assembly at that point, and it's, you can't pick and choose. Oh, well, you get to stay. And it's like, hey, everyone just needs to leave at this point. But no, like, I think we really respect the First Amendment right to peacefully protest, and we want your voices to be heard. And again, that's why we were able to be like, hey, what do you guys need? You know what I mean? Obviously, every city's not like that, but that's just us here. So no, I mean, and I know being on the mobile field force team, because we're the one that kind of goes out and deals with the riots. No, we want you guys to have your unlawful, your peaceful protest. But when it starts to rise and becomes an unlawful assembly, like those business owners, they also have a right to protect their property and to not have it looted and rocks being thrown in the window. So that's where it becomes convoluted, So obviously we want you guys to be out there. We want your voices to be heard. And I don't think anyone took anything away from the Black Lives Matter movement, because that's like you saying, oh, that cop right there kicked that kid, all you guys are racist. That's like me saying, oh, Black Lives Matter, you guys broke the window, every one of you guys are bad. And we can't look like that, and we don't. So it's having that dialogue to be like, hey, look, we know everyone isn't bad. Unfortunately, you guys got a couple bad apples in this little group, and it's because the last thing we want to do is launch tear gas and stuff like that. But again, it's being able to just be respectful. And I would love to see in the future, if there is any form of like peaceful protest or a gathering, whatever it is, and it's citizens holding each other accountable for their actions, so that we don't have to start taking action. You know what I mean? So I would love to see that. And again, the movement is the movement, and every life matters, especially mine. I'm Black, and I would hope that my life mattered, as well. Even me being a police officer, like I hope there wouldn't be like well, your life doesn't matter because you're a police officer. But no, I'm Black. I grew up Black. My kids are Black. So yeah, every life matters to me, and it's how I've always treated it. So I'm grateful that you guys were able to sit up here and have this dialogue and talk to us like this. So,
and we're grateful for it as well, because I'd like to point out again, I previously said we're teenagers, and not everybody has this outlook that teenagers know what they're talking about, or they have that level of maturity to have this conversation. When in reality, a lot of teenagers are dying to have this conversation. Like, if I'm passionate about a topic, I'm going to speak on it, and I'm going to speak what's truly at heart, and I'm going to say what I think, because I shouldn't let somebody else's perception limit my voice, and neither should other teenagers around the world. Look at Greta Thunberg. She was a minor, and she's advocating for climate change around the world, and she's becoming this icon. And the respect that is given towards teenagers needs to be higher, because we have a voice, and we are the hands and the future of what this world is going to be and what the future holds. Because whether people like it or not, the new generation is going to eventually take over, and we're going to be the ones that are advocating for this change. Like, we're the new law enforcement, we're the new doctors, we're the new surgeons, we're the new people that are out in the field, we're the new people of what's going to be of our country, and we're the ones that are going to be running for Congress and the House and for president. And being able to have this platform is so important, because although some teachers will open their floors to have these discussions, and I'm grateful that I've had these conversations with my teachers, and they enjoy it and they love hearing their students' voice. Not every adult's like that, because they don't believe and they don't respect in a teenager's voice and the right to an opinion, which once again is a right. And just being able, like, we can tell that you have respect for what we're saying and you're genuinely taking it at heart. And unfortunately, that's not the situation for every kid that wants to speak on what they want to speak about. So I think this is a great opportunity, and just being able to talk about it. And yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
And you spoke about change, and honestly, doing something like this is the beginning of change, right? You know, people seeing this, being able to say, hey, look, hey, we need to reconnect with our youth, and how can we do it? And now more of these platforms start to, you know, come up, and agencies start doing it. So this could be the beginning of change for us, for all of us. So
Elizabeth, did you still have your question? I saw you reach for it, and then
So it's not really a question, it's kind of like a comment, like going back to like what you guys can do to help and, you know, like better engage. One, like, you know, good, I don't know if it's a good idea, but like an idea would be like let's say you want to present and like kind of do bonding type of thing. Because most kids, like, I know, and, you know, I, like, sometimes I think like this, like, okay, why would I go to that? Like, what am I going to get out of it? Like, you can talk with teachers and be like, hey, like, you know, give them, like, extra credit, or give them this, like, maybe have them give something in return, like, even though that's kind of, like, I don't know if it sounds good as an approach.
But provide an incentive.
Buying your love is what you're saying.
Yeah, kind of. Only because, like, you know, like, some kids are going to be like, well, why would I go to that? Like, you know, I have more important things to do. Like, what am I going to get out of it? And, like, at first, like, you know, their attitude might not be good, but maybe throughout that whole speech or presentation, whatever it's going to be, like, something sticks to them, and, like, you know, it's worth a shot.
yeah, I agree.
No, I for sure agree with you. I think that's a great idea. And if that, whatever gets put on, and if you guys hear about it, like you said, we need your help too. So tell our friends, encourage them to come along for whatever it is that's going to be presented or the activity that's going on. We a team.
I actually have another question.
Sure.
When you guys were talking about your training and how Chino PD is very fortunate with the level and the amount of training that you guys are equipped with, and how your response to the protests and how you were supportive and you encouraged you guys to use your voice and to protest, what is your guys' viewpoint, or how do you think other police departments can change? Because the departments that may not have the exact training or have that equipped or may not be as checked up on are the departments that have these tragic situations where their training and their practice and their contacts are the ones that we see in the news and the ones that aren't always viewed in this positive light. Although we are very fortunate, there are many unfortunate situations due to lack of training, lack of checkup on, lack of whether it's mental and psychological training. How do you guys feel about that, and what do you think could be changed?
That goes back up to like legislation as far as funding, because obviously, you know, you want to hire great people, right? And you want to give them all this training, and obviously you have to spend the money on it. So, you know, it's being able to equip them, and that goes from here up to legislation. You know, obviously there was a movement of defund the police. You know, when you start taking money away from the police and giving them the bare minimums, you kind of get the bare minimums in response to how they deal with people out in the society, you know? So that's where it all stems from as well.
Thank you guys so much. I know we can sit here and we can have so many conversations all day, but before we conclude this evening, I wanted to thank you guys so much. First and foremost, I really wanted to express how proud I am of each and every one of you guys. You are representing our community and representing the future of our community. And so I just felt so proud to sit back there and hear how well you guys articulated yourselves, how mature you guys were, and just how open. So thank you so much. We look forward to being able to have this in the near future, and so we hope to continue having these meetings. But before we conclude this evening, I did want to invite our Chief of Police to share a few words.
Wow, this was an incredible discussion. I'm honored to have been able to be in the room listening to you guys talk. Our future is so bright. You guys said it all. You are the future. You're going to take over. Some of you might be sitting at this table. And some of these people will probably be sitting in my shoes and be the chief of police one day. Our community is only what it is because of you, because of the people who make this community. I wanted to go back to a person by the name of Sir Robert Peel. So Sir Robert Peel started the Metropolitan London Police Department in the 1820s, and he's really credited with founding modern law enforcement. And this is what he said with principle number 7, and touches on what you guys just talked about. Police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to that historic tradition that the police are the public and the public are the police. The police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to the duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community welfare and existence. That's where we're here. There's no difference between you on this side of the table and them on this side of the table. We're all part of the same community. And I won't deny that our law enforcement in America hasn't had some very challenging times. We've screwed up. We've made mistakes, and we have to get better. And we are getting better. And we're getting better because we're willing to have these conversations and allow you guys to speak into it. A couple of things that you said really caught my attention. One was, what did you do after a department after George Floyd, and how did that make you feel? That made me feel sick. I was embarrassed for this profession that I believe is honorable, and for the men and women I know who serve in it. And I came out publicly and I shared that, and I condemned the actions of Officer Chauvin. Okay, so that's how I felt. But the members of this department felt sick too. We hosted just a department meeting where we brought the members of this department together so we could talk. You know, our officers of color struggled because they were getting it from their families, saying, how can you be in this profession? Some of them lost best friends who wouldn't talk to them anymore. You know, and other members of the department didn't understand because they didn't grow up in those experiences. So we were able to come together as a department and really and heal together, because we still had to go out there and do a job. The other thing that you guys talked about that I thought was important was social media. Social media has given a voice to people who haven't always had a voice. It can be used for negative, but it can be used for positive too. And I will credit the fact that we have social media, that some of this change has occurred. Because it's out there, it's in our face, and we have to deal with it. Because of the things that have gone on, we're now required to release videos anytime an officer is involved in a shooting. We want the public to see. If we have to take somebody's life, we want you to know why we did it. And if we made a mistake and we did something inappropriate, we're going to own up to that as well, and we'll deal with it. But as I listen to all of you speak, I couldn't be more proud, couldn't be more excited of our future. I never thought I would ever be a police officer. I went to Cal State Fullerton. 5 years into my 6-year degree, I decided I was going to be a police officer, and I'm so thankful I did. So even though you might not be thinking of it now, maybe in the future, I think all of you have the temperament to be great police officers. So thank you again for coming and participating in this discussion. And for our SROs, you guys do a phenomenal job every day out there talking with you, developing you, mentoring you, and making sure that our future stays bright. So thank you guys for participating.